So we covered up with our program, and now it's time for Adil, and the professor will be taking us through the rest of the session. First, uh, first of all, many people in the area of entrepreneurship know him, but there might be those among you who don't know much of Adil. Well, Adil is at METU, uh, Department of Management, and also an ecosystem combatant for better ecosystems. Between 2007 and 2011, he directed GIMER, Entrepreneurship Center, Girişimcilik Merkezi, and he is almost the sole professor that comes to our minds when we hear the word entrepreneurship. Also, in the administration, he is tutoring in matters pertaining to accounting, etc. He's been mentoring, advising people, and he's happy, it seems, with supporting entrepreneurs and tutoring entrepreneurs. So he will be telling us about roles in entrepreneurship and types of entrepreneurship with a specific focus on migrants, refugee populations, and the local communities or host communities. He will share with us the dimensions of those aspects as well in Turkey, of course. Thank you for the most valuable information. Thank you in advance. Okay, let me turn on my microphone. I wouldn't say the sole professor, but among the prominent figures, yes, I am among those guys. I am a graduate of Economics, Department of Economics in METU, and then I was an assistant at the Department of BA, and since 2011, 2012, I'm mostly focusing on entrepreneurship. I liked it, really started to like it, and I've seen that there are things that I could do, so I started to allocate much of my time in this area. I mean, the ecosystem combatant or a warrior. I like that definition because there's a lot of things to do in these areas. In this areas, there's a great need for human resources, and also, although I'm not the direct founder of a company, I am one that supports those founders. So I am happy with what's going on, and with the direction that things are going. If you want further information about me, just type in Adil Oran. I will just pop up. Thanks to my rare name, I mean, there are a couple of more Adils in Turkey,
Dolayısıyla ben
but
verdiğim
I don't
dersler
think they're much interested in internet. So if you want to find out more about my tutoring, my classes, courses, whatever, you can check adiloran.com, or you can find me on Twitter or on other media easily. So today we talk about entrepreneurship and migrants. That's the title of my presentation, but it's just one of them. One of the topics I will be very briefly and quickly touching upon these issues. Consider them as honey drops, let's say, that will leave a beautiful taste in our palate. But why is entrepreneurship important? Why is everyone, nations and international corporations, talk about even more uh, in entrepreneurship, and why you should be interested in entrepreneurship? Well, previous speakers have touched upon those issues, but I want to share with you some numbers and figures regarding that. And then migrants and entrepreneurship. Why? It sounds reasonable, but there are hidden. I'm not talking about Turkey only. I'm talking about this one globally. Migrants have a significant role in entrepreneurship as a whole. And then I'll share with you some information regarding that. Then also I'll talk about types of entrepreneurship. Selahattin talked about social entrepreneurship. It's a relatively novel term, but there are corporate entrepreneurship types of internal corporate entrepreneurship, etc. And then I will close by touching upon the issue of failures in entrepreneurship, and not all entrepreneurs are successful. So, uh, and honey drops, due to time, will get smaller and smaller, but still, we will have a taste of these topics. I will share with you names and definitions of some instruments for further queries, should you have any. So,
neden girişimcilik önemli?
Uh, why
Aslında biz işletme bölümü olarak
does it matter?
ve
Entrepreneurship,
dünyadaki
why is it
işletme bölümleri
important?
olarak
As
yeni
the business
en
management
yeni
departments in the world,
sektörlere
we
başladık.
are
Yani
relatively new
kurulduğumuz
or
zamanlar
novices in
işletme bölümleri
entrepreneurship. I
tamamen
mean,
aslında büyük
when
şirket
we were
sorunlarını
established, first of
çözmek,
all,
onlarla
business
uğraşmak
administration
için
departments mostly focused on, were
yaratılmıştı
designed to
belli
focus on
başlı.
corporate
Ama
problems,
zaman içerisinde
resolutions of those problems,
girişimciliğin
but
ekonomik
whatever.
yoksulluğu
In
göstererek
times,
bu
as
işler
the
biraz
role
daha
of
önem almaya
entrepreneurship within the
başladıkça
general scope of economy
kanunlarla da
started
ilgilenmek gerekiyor
changing, which became more and more important,
dendiğinde
then we
mesela
started
rolleri
thinking like,
anlatmaya
wow, we
çalışıp
should turn to this
Türkiye'den
more
örneğini
closely, look at
verdim ve
this more closely. I'll
Türkiye'de
share with you some
OECD
numbers from
ortalamalarından
from the
pek
Turkish
farklı değil.
experience, but
Oldukça
Turkey is no
benzer
different than
coğrafyada.
OECD averages. I
Mesela
mean, those
şirket
numbers and
sayısı
figures.
olarak
For example, in terms of number of
girişimci,
companies,
KOBİ yani küçük ve orta ölçekli
SME, small,
işletmeler
medium-sized
yine biraz
or
bir araya
scale
getireceğim.
enterprises, let's bring
Ama
them all
büyük
together.
şirket oranı yani
Uh,
bizim aslında
but
işletme
the
bölümleri olarak
amount of the
takip
number
edeceğimiz büyük
of
şirketler
big
aslında
companies,
çok ufak bir
that's the
kısmı
point of
oluşturan
interest for
şirketler.
us, our departments, but
Türkiye'de bu
they are only the tip of the
%0.2%.
iceberg, which is zero point 0.2
Dolayısıyla
in
küçük
Turkey,
orta
zero point
ölçekli
0.2.
işletmeler
So
aslında
SMEs
%99'un
in
üzerinde
Turkey have a
%99.8'ini
foothold which
oluşturur
is
şirketlerin
more than
sayısı.
99.8
Ama tabii
of
bir
all
süre
the
sonra
companies are
gerçekten çok
SMEs,
büyük
and there
olduğu için
are
bunların bir
only a
orta
handful of
ortalaması
giants
alınması doğru
and
olur.
some SMEs,
Mesela
a lot of
şu an
SMEs,
ciroda
and an average of that in terms of
%25-%30 civarı
turnover,
büyük şirketler
25 to
takip ediyor.
30% of the
0.2
overall
büyük bir
turnover
ufak bir rakam,
comes from
%25, %30
giants.
artıyor.
And
İstihdam denince
when you
gene
say employment again, the
%66
giants
falan gibi bir
provide
şey
about
olabilir.
66% of
%30-35 civarı
35% of
şirketlerin
all
payı.
employment, and 60 to
Dolayısıyla bu
70% of all employment
KOBİ'lerin
comes
çok
from
ciddi rolü var
SMEs. So
işletme
this is
bölümünde.
just to
Hele hele büyük
emphasize the
olduğu zaman
significant role of SMEs. And when you talk about
biz
growth,
Cumhuriyeti
especially
kurduğumuzda
growth, when we founded
büyümemek
our
için
republic,
bilhassa
in order
devlet
to grow,
önderliğinde bir
the
büyüme
the
modeli
government has
izledik.
taken the role. That was the kind of growth
Fakat bunu
model that
yapan
Turkey
başka
pursued,
yerler de var. Ama
state-led.
zaman
There are
geçtikçe
other examples from other parts of the
Türkiye
world, but in
fark etti.
time, all the countries
Büyüme
have come
sadece
to
devletin
realize
veyahut da
that
sadece mevcut
growth
büyük şirketlerle
has
ilişkili
nothing to
gerçekçi olmuyor.
do with the
Farklı
governments
selektif
only. I
ekonomik
mean,
çalışmalar
it's not
var.
reasonable to
Ama
expect the
yani
government to do
yönetim
everything. There are different
kendi
studies
modelini
carried out
izlemişler
for a
girişimcilikte.
variety of countries,
Hele
but
hele
in
istihdam
entrepreneurship is a
yaratmada
keyword
daha
for
da büyük
growth.
rolü ortaya
Employment,
çıkıyor.
job creation,
Amerika'daki
entrepreneurship
Kaufman Vakfı'nın bir
is
çalışması
another
var.
keyword. Kaufman Foundation has
2025
carried out this
yani 25 senelik bir süreçte
study
yapılan en
extended
işin
over 85 to
incelemesi nedir?
2005, 25
Diyor
years.
ki her sektörün
They
kendine
have
has
examined
emeklilikteki
networks
süreleri,
created. I mean, you take
işten
in
çıkarma
human
süreçleri
resources,
ve
and then there are the
büyümedeki
retirees. So
incelemişler.
what's the net
Ve bu 25
off
senelik
of it?
sürede
And
Amerika'da
in the
net
time
istihdam
between 80
yaratmada
to
büyük
2005,
şirketlerin
25
rolü
years,
yaklaşık
the role
sıfır
of
olduğu ortaya
big
çıkmış.
companies in creating jobs
Tek
was
eleman alıyorlar
almost
alıyorlar
zero. Yes, they employ every
ama
year, yes, but with
ondan
the
sonra işveren
retirees in
istediğinde
the picture, and when
daha
things
verimli
go
hale
south
gelmelerin
for more
yolunu
efficiency, there
bulamayabiliyor
are
bazı
layoffs.
büyük şirketler tarafından.
I mean,
Dolayısıyla
the giant
istihdam
companies are
yaratmada
so
Amerika
skillful at
mesela
that, doing that. In
neredeyse
terms of
lider
job
olarak
creation, they
gelişti.
play no role,
Peki
almost no
istihdam
role.
yaratılmamış mı
Then
Amerika'da?
employment is not created in the US between
Maalesef öyle
1980
değil.
to 2005. Yeah,
Maalesef bu
unemployment rates
işler
are so low. But
geri
where do these
kalan
jobs come?
KOBİ'lerden
From startup
hepsi
SMEs.
neredeyse big
Not
output
all of
üretip
them,
bunlara
but
yüksek büyüme
especially
potansiyelli
they have this high potential
dediğimiz bu
SMEs,
içerisinden
and
bir
those
istihdam kabul
are the
etmiyorlar.
locomotives. Those
Yani
have
bu
been the
yüksek
engines. I
büyüme
mean, they
öncesi
have
bazı
gotten
şirketler
hold of
yapmış
significant
ve bu
ideas. Those
şirketlerin
companies have
olunca
skyrocketed,
toplum
and
içerisinde
the
bir anda
amount, and they're just a minority, less than 5%, around 3% or so within the general population of companies.
bence çekici
And
güçler
those
oluyor
have been the
ülkelerde
engines, the
özellikle
locomotives of employment and job creation.
dünyanın çoğu
In
ekonomide.
essence, it's the case in
Amerika'daki
many economies of the world. And
maalesef
we
bu
talk about
şeyi olan
US and
KOBİ'lerin
those new startups,
yapısı
startup SMEs, and this
Türkiye'deki bir
kind of
çalışma
SME,
vardı.
they are the engines for the
Yayılan
US. There was
rakamlar
this other
diyor
study
ki
carried out for
tahminen
Austria,
çoğu ülkenin
50% plus.
içinde
So
hepsi
I would
olmasa
say my
en az
guess
yarısı
would be in all
KOBİ'den türemek.
countries. I
Belki
think
daha fazla.
most of
Dolayısıyla böyle
more than
çalışmalar
half of all
yapılıyor ve
jobs
bu yüzden
created
herkesi işte
all to
Avrupa
the
Birliği veyahut da
SMEs.
işte
That's
Türkiye
why
veyahut
everybody
da
in
başka
Europe,
ülkeler
in the
küresel
EU, in Turkey, and
girişimciliğe
everyone
çok
is
önemsemeye
focusing
başladılar.
so
Buna
much
ihtiyaçları
on
var.
entrepreneurship
İnovasyon
because they
yaratmak
need
da
it.
önemli
Creating
burada.
innovation
Büyük
They play an important role in terms of innovation. And there are certain things like R&D and innovation, certain types of R&D, certain types of innovation are among the skill sets of the giant companies, but giant companies or big companies may not do it, may not pull it off, may not reap successes. For example, Clayton Christensen has certain books on innovation. He passed away in 2020, but his books remain and serve as sources. Creative innovation, disruptive innovation. So he says that disruptive innovation is a talent of small scale companies.
Dolayısıyla inovasyona dayalı girişimcilik özellikle eğer desteklenebilirse, arttırılabilirse bu hem o şirket kurucusuna hem
So
içinde bulunduğu ortama ciddi katkılar bulunan bir şeydir. Bu yüzden de
speaking of innovation, yes, how to support innovation? That is a critical question to ask. And then business administration departments
kurulmaya başlamıştır ama ancak 1970-80'lere ve daha sonrasında bununla ilgilenmeye başlamıştır.
in 80s and later, we started focusing on this, and we were not, as business administration departments, so successful at the time. And the tools that I will tell you about today have mostly been developed after those times in early 2000s. I mean, the recommendations that we have shared with big companies, we tried to put them into pill form and share them with small companies, but it wasn't a success. There, I have a question. What do you think Turkey's best resource is, the most valuable asset Turkey has? Someone's like my name, but Adil is my granddad's name. Anyway, Adil Oran's like the just ratio. Anyway, the most valuable asset of Turkey, adaptive people, survivors, youngs. It's all correct answers. All of them are correct. Yes, I think too. The most valuable asset Turkey has is this one, not boron, not hazelnuts, not geostrategical position, etc. No, I mean, is it trouble or is it an asset? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. But the really most valuable asset is our population. Our most valuable asset is our young population, especially young population. This is Turkey's population pyramid. Healthy structures are in the form of pyramids. We have a somewhat narrowing bottom here because these are unemployed here at the bottom, and then those that are employed, value creation, tax payment, those are the ones, and then we have retirees at the top, at the tip. So if this area is large, then it means that the system can sustain itself. Otherwise, this construct would lose its characteristics as a pyramid and topple. Let's take another look at Western Europe. See, this is the population pyramid of Western Europe. You have a tapering bottom. We see the cone on top, the pyramid, but it's a problem for Europe. Young population is being lost. The elderly are increasing in number, and you have this portion of the population that's growing old, so they will get their salaries for more and more, many more years because they will live. So this tells us that Europe needs migrants. I mean, there were influxes after the World War, influxes of migrants, and the same thing might happen again. This is Japan, even worse. And Japan experiences significant problems with the young population, and they are employing measures in Japan. Production is based heavily on automation. So those are the kind of people that can pull it off because workforce is scarce and expensive. So they're trying to make best use of it in terms of putting them in good use.
Now let's look at what is the biggest problem of Turkey, according to your opinion. Unemployment, Unemployment,
Neler var?
is it the biggest problem?
Gene katılacağım sana.
I
Çok sonuç bekliyorum. Beleş değil.
expecting great results with little effort.
Ama şu en değerli kaynağımız vardı ya.
Our biggest value, our biggest resource, it is also our biggest problem, because this is how we use our most valuable resource. This is a picture showing you a group of young people who are waiting to find a job from the Turkish Employment Agency. So we cannot make good use of our young people. We cannot make good use of our people in general, but we cannot make good use of our young people in particular. The general unemployment rates are high in Turkey. The unemployment figures may be sometimes manipulated. That's why there are new terms which come up, like need, neither in employment nor in education or training. This is a new terminology which was recently coined up. This is the need rate between 15 and 20 years of age. And in 2018, this is a statistics generated for the European Union. It is about young people age 20 and 34. The EU average is 16.5%, and Turkey is the second highest after the Montenegro. Turkey with 33.2%. Turkey ranks among the top three. We are not the top one, but we are among the top three. Maybe these figures are even higher than what is shown here. So it is a really unpleasant situation. We are not making good use of this invaluable resource. This is what is showing us. And when we distinguish it between men and women, the situation is getting worse and worse. Among men, it is between 15 and 20%. The rate of need, and but when it comes to the female, it is around 50%. 50% of the young female people are neither in employment nor in education or training. So this is a really serious situation. It's not a situation specific, it's not a problem specific to Turkey. Maybe Turkey is experiencing it in the worst form, but every country in the world is thinking hard about how to create employment. Another problem facing Turkey is as follows. Yes, Turkey has a young population, but we are not training and educating them well. We are finding it hard to make sure that they get the necessary skills and qualifications. This is the rate of not having the basic skills like literacy skills and mathematical skills. In the general population between 15 and 65-year-olds, Turkey ranks after Chile, and 40% of the overall general population lacks the basic skills, according to this study. It doesn't mean that they don't know how to read or write, but their literacy levels are not sufficient or are not good enough. This is what this graphic is showing us. So we have to make good use of our young people, this resource. We have to train them well. So we are facing huge problems in those regards. Let's talk about entrepreneurship definition. As academicians, we like to start things by defining them. I would like to explain you what definition I use. The broadest definition is actually anyone who is in entrepreneurship business is an entrepreneur, but it includes everyone. But there are some types of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurships which I am not interested in. As an academician working on entrepreneurship, I am focusing my attention on the types of entrepreneurs who create a difference. So Eric Ries is the author of the Lean Startup book, and he actually created a definition. It says trying to develop a new product or service under conditions of high uncertainty. This is his definition. this is an entrepreneurship definition which is referring to the entrepreneurship of high potential. I like this entrepreneurship definition because it actually excludes who are imitative entrepreneurs, like opening up the fifth pharmacy store or grocery store on the same screen. So they are not operational under conditions of high uncertainty. So this definition is excluding them, but it is including someone, another group. When you are trying to develop a new product or a new service, you are included. And it doesn't talk about profit orientation. So it is talking about new and different groups of entrepreneurs. This definition is covering them as well. And it is that's why we are, within this definition, we are focusing on developing tools to help these entrepreneurs. And there are also intrapreneurs. Intrapreneurs are entrepreneurs who are working within an institution. Large companies need entrepreneurs as well. They are also after operating more into innovative, and they are also after making their employees more innovative. This is also what the states, what the governments are also doing. I am an academician, but I consider myself as an intrapreneur because I am providing and offering many projects, many courses, many new projects. That's why I think I am covered by this definition. Yes, I didn't start a company. I am not 100% profit oriented, but still I am consider myself an intrapreneur. Let's also consider how the companies are categorized. 98% of the companies are small and medium enterprises. Actually, there are also micro enterprises. They have fewer than 10 employees. Small enterprises have between up to 50 employees. Mid enterprises have between 50 and 249 employees, and large companies have more than 250 employees. So I also focus my attention on the link between entrepreneurship and companies. So we are talking about large companies and small companies. Small companies are actually similar to like a small mouse, but large companies are considered as similar to large bear, but actually they are not large bears. They are actually like large dinosaurs, which is the picture in the background. Most of the large companies are slowly operating entities. They are not fast in their actions. So that's why small companies are more advantageous than large ones, especially when it comes to new initiatives. These new initiatives may be new markets or new business where the potential is not high. Large companies would not take their time to go into such new markets because the energy that they would spend would not be worth it. So they wouldn't take their time to go into such markets. But these new markets may be large enough for the small, for feeding the small companies for enough time. So the small companies get stronger in those new markets, which is left idle by the large companies, and they get stronger, and they are able to compete against large companies. For instance, a large vessel, they can maneuver, they cannot take maneuvers in a fast manner. Even when there is an iceberg before a large vessel, even when they try to take a maneuver and take a turn, they get hit by this iceberg, and they start to think. That's why agile was a term that is coined up, and agility is not something that is very much applicable to large companies. I'm also going to give you some examples from animals, entrepreneur animals. This is the unicorn, most popular one. Unicorn is a companies is referring to companies which have a value of more than $1 billion, but they shouldn't be listed in the stock exchange. They shouldn't be publicized. For instance, Yemek Sepeti, even if its value is more than 1 billion, they are not unicorns or peak games because they were bought by some companies listed in the stock exchanges. So that's why they cannot be seen in the unicorn list. That's why you shouldn't be listed in the stock exchange. Udemy has a value of more than 1 billion, but they are listed in the stock exchange. That's why they are not unicorn. So if you are listed in the stock exchange, if you are publicized, then you are no longer unicorn. For instance, O2 Middle East Technical University Techno City set a goal for itself like as follows. We are going to make sure that there is a unicorn emerging out of us in the next decade. At least one unicorn is going to emerge out of us in the next decade. I said one more because they actually say that they claim that there is one unicorn emerging out of them. Udemy actually was started in O2 Techno City by an engineer in Middle East Technical University, but it didn't continue its operations there. It started again in the US. It gets its investments in the US. Yes, the production and development of the products are done in the Middle East Technical University, but there's a time between in between the Turkey Middle East Technical University and the US. So that's why the Middle East Technical University claims that they have a unicorn which has emerged out of them. But we shouldn't focus too much on unicorns because these are actually mythological creatures. It was only once upon a time we had only 200 of such unicorns. If you check the link that I just sent you, currently there are 800 unicorns. So the number has gone up. There is an inflation in the number of unicorns. We will see if the market is going to go on like this. We shouldn't only focus on unicorns. There is a new definition, which is gazelles. It's a new term, new definition. They have a sales amount of $1 million at the beginning. Then for about 4 years, their growth rate is around 20% per year. And such companies are defined as gazelles. For 4 years in a row, you should be achieving a growth of 20% and you should have a turnover, an initial turnover of $1 million. We have such companies and we can increase their numbers. Instead of 1 or 2 unicorns, I prefer 500 or 100 gazelles coming out of us. This is going to ensure a more fair distribution of money, and this is going to also create a ecosystem. Maybe some of these gazelles will grow even more and they will turn into unicorns. But if we have companies of $10 million or $50 million, it would be really good. Not everyone has to reach that level of $1 billion. For instance, Oxtine was mentioned. For instance, they were sold at $296 million. It's an interesting story as well. Fatih and Fırat İşbecer, they are brothers, for instance. They used to have a company called Positron, and they sold their companies at a value of $100 million. And they got their company back, and they changed its name to as Monetize. They are specialized in gaming and payment technologies. So these are two popular examples, but there are also emerging terms. There's also another emerging definition, which is camel. Some people wrote down corona at the chat. Yes, sometimes you face really serious problems. Money, for instance, sometimes disappears, like there is no water in a desert. So they can survive for a long time with really limited resources. So Camel is a definition coined up to define such companies. After, for instance, some companies, after 10 days, they are almost dead. But camels can survive. Even especially during the hard times, gazelles spend money like there is no tomorrow, but camels adapt themselves to the conditions. And if the conditions require you to take slow actions, they can do this, and they can spend less money during hard times. This is what we are supposed to do, maybe currently, but when the market conditions become more favorable, you should adapt yourself to be able to regrow. Can you give us some examples about camels? For instance, some restaurants, they were like hibernating during COVID. When you get investment, you should, for instance, spend this invested money for advertisement to get new customers for fast growth purposes. But some companies were not very much concerned about profit. They think that profit may come later. But when money resources became limited, some companies adapted themselves really fast to that. They started to spend less, and they transformed their structure into a one which can help them survive. There are many such companies, but I cannot think of a particular example right now. If it comes to my mind right now, I can tweet it today. You can follow me on Twitter. Let's talk about the second topic of today, which is the entrepreneurship and migrants. Do you think migrants are burdens to the economies that they live in, or do you think they bring along benefits to the economies that they live in? There are interesting studies about this topic. The possibility of migrants to become an entrepreneur is higher than the possibility for the local communities. For instance, in the US, the first generation of migrants, it is 18%. And among the entrepreneurs, this ratio is doubled. Actually, it is more than the double. It is almost 30%. Among the US entrepreneurs, around 30% of them are migrants among the American entrepreneurs. The green line indicates the ratio of becoming an entrepreneur among those who lived in the UK for their whole life. And the blue line is representing the migrants. It is almost 2 times as much as the green line. There is an increase in 2011, and this increase was even higher among the migrants. You see, it is almost more than 12%, although it was around 6% among local people. So this is a general tendency, not just specific to US. Any comment? Someone raised a hand. Shall we get the questions now or later? If it's a short question, Umut, you can ask right now if it's a short one. Or write chat. So, next question. Hairdressers, groceries, these are the only shops started or businesses started by migrants, or do the migrants start more sophisticated businesses? I don't have data for other countries, but this is the US data, Fortune 500 companies. It is showing us the companies started by immigrants or the children of immigrants, like the second generation of immigrants. Among the top 10, there is one started by immigrants and two started by the children of immigrants. It is also in this list is also including Google, large companies like Google. In top 25 has 16% and 36%. If the sum of it is equal to the half of it. So 13 of such companies within the top 25 were started by immigrants or the children of immigrants. And when it comes to the top 35, you see more than 40% of them are founded by immigrants or the children of immigrants. So the immigrants play a really important role, not in small companies, but in big companies as well. Let's check the sectoral distribution. They are available and operational in every sector you can imagine, like retail sector, consumer goods, transportation as well. The red indicates immigrant founded, and the blue indicates founded by the local people, local host communities. For instance, Eren Bali, when we mentioned Eren Bali, I wrote to the chat Carbon Health. Eren Bali started another company after Udemy, and it is about to become a Udemy. It is operational in the healthcare sector in the US. It is also a company relying its operations on data. So they are operational in every sector, and they are playing a serious role in small and large businesses. This is another interesting study. You may not be a migrant, but if you have a connection with abroad, the chance of you becoming a successful entrepreneur is higher. This is a study covering students who went to Erasmus, and when you compare their opinion with those who have never benefited from Erasmus, there is a statistically significant difference. Those students who studied abroad, they have better ideas because they have had access to other cultures. They have had the chance to familiarize themselves about doing business in different countries. So why do we see more entrepreneurs among the immigrants? There are some studies on this topic. First of all, selection can be really applicable to the US context, because US selects or filters immigrants. Not every person can migrate to the US. Maybe from Mexico you can swim to America, it's another story, but you can become an immigrant in the US. You have to have some characteristics or self-election. Those who are forced to become an immigrant, you may have some characteristics which are making you a good entrepreneur, like you may be tolerant to risks, or you may be eager to see new cultures. These are really helpful characteristics to become an entrepreneur. If you have faced discrimination, it is actually something which is pushing you towards becoming an entrepreneur. Maybe a company hasn't hired you, so you have to start your own business, or you have to work with an immigrant to earn money. Language problems may be an important factor pushing you to become an entrepreneur. If you are not familiar with a particular language, you may not be hired by multinationals, so you choose to do business in your own environment, and you may become an entrepreneur in this manner. Or your education or your experience that you have acquired in your own country may not be recognized by another country. For instance, you are a physician in your own country, but you are not allowed to be a physician in another country, or your graduation certificate is not recognized by another country. So but if you start your own business in such a situation, you know what you can do. so that you benefit from your own skills and in your own company. It may be a reason for you to start your own business, or communities which are not getting good services. Actually, a good problem is a good opportunity. A good entrepreneur sees an opportunity where everyone else sees a problem. Everyone says that this place is very cold, or this chair is not very comfortable. Some people only complain, but some people say that yes, this is a problem. If I resolve this problem, I may earn an income out of this. So if you see big problems, if you face huge problems, and if you understand how valuable it would be to resolve such a problem, then you may become a successful, more successful entrepreneur than those who have never faced such problems. Intercultural experience may be an important factor as well. Actually, going to another country for 6 months, for 3 months can be a big contribution. And if you spend a good portion of your life in another country and migrate to another country afterwards, then you can understand how you can adapt and how you can resolve your problems. Your connections or maybe a good source for you, or you may say that there is this product in another country which is not sold in Turkey. It may be a good opportunity, creativity. Sometimes creativity comes out of necessity.
So there's a lot of potential reasons, and the answer is none of them, but all of them. It's a mix of all of these and many more that you don't see on the screen. And those problems, we face those problems. I spent a significant portion of my life abroad. My father was employed at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm not a migrant in a sense. I'm not a migrant per se, but there are upsides and downsides, difficulties and hardships of living in a foreign community, or in one community as a foreigner, as an outsider. Anyway, types of entrepreneurship. Let's take a look at them. Not all entrepreneurs are the same. Not all works are the same. For example, out of necessity, out of opportunity. What's the difference? I mean, entrepreneurship out of necessity is that because you can find a job where there are no other jobs to do, huh? No other jobs. They might not have a great potential for growth, and they are compelled and can't do nothing but entrepreneurship. But opportunity-based entrepreneurship, they can work elsewhere, but there is a problem. There's a potential area for growth, and to solve that, the individuals in this group make a decision to become entrepreneurs. So high value creation, the potential for high job creation, etc., comes out of this opportunity-based entrepreneurship growth. Lifestyle entrepreneurship, they are boutique companies created to stay small. Everybody dreams of going to the aging coast and this coffee houses, tea shop, just 3 stools and a table. And this is not to create jobs, it's just a dream. And it's just because those people want to lead a calm, laid-back life. That's fine. That's interesting. Might be beneficial, but still, we don't talk about high growth potential.
Bunların bir kısmını da dahil edebilir.
Entrepreneurship with a high potential for growth then. I mean, this is good to focus on if you have national targets, if you are opting for innovation, scalable entrepreneurship. So when your sales and production go up, your profit goes up as well. For example, softwares, games, or scalable jobs, scalable businesses. Why? Because when you get the software in place just for once, or when you make that into a standard product, then you can mass produce, and your costs will go up slowly, and your marginal profit can get bigger and bigger. So these are scalable mass production. When these are the kind of jobs that can create significant turnover. And innovative entrepreneurship, as the name suggests, it's innovative, brings about something new. Techno, information-based entrepreneurship, women entrepreneurship, something that we really need, right? 50%, huh? Among the youngs.
Faydalanmadığımız genç nüfusumuz var. Dolayısıyla onların bir kısmının en azından bir kısmı da kendi işlerini kurup yürütebilecek
And at least some of them,
önemli bir fayda
if they could,
yaratabilecek şeyler.
you know,
Ticari girişimcilik
start their own jobs.
çoğu ticari girişimcilik yani
These are all commercial entrepreneurship
ama sosyal girişimcilik
and social entrepreneurship. Social entrepreneurship has just emerged.
konuşmacı buna
And the
ama
speaker
çok öne çıkardığım şey değil
in the
bu
morning
ama
thought I
önemli
would touch upon
olan bir
this
şey aslında
a
sosyal
little bit more, but
girişimcilik.
social
Bir kâr
entrepreneurship
amaçlı
is
veya
important.
da
It's
temel
non-profit,
amacı kâr olmayan girişimcilik örnekleri.
or
Ona birkaç tane
these are entrepreneurship examples that don't necessarily seek profit. Anyway, I will give you some examples of that in a couple of more slides. Corporate entrepreneurship involves the government, involves corporations,
tamamen taklit olarak girişimcilik yapan.
or universities. And then there are clones or imitators. Now I want to share with you some real life examples. These are the ones that I had the chance to directly meet and greet. I know them. This is Murat Topçu, a mechanical engineer. The name of the company is Bama Technology. And these are rehab robots that they are producing. You put on this outfit, and then if you have a damaged or operated on backbone, so you need to be back up again on your feet, walk again, and they need rehabilitation, they need rehab, and you have to work physically with them. And if the person is not good, it might not serve the purpose. But if you would automate this, that's what Murat has done with these. I think it was called RoboGate, wearable robotics. So you put it on, and the robot makes you walk. There is a screen you see yourself as if you're playing, as if you're walking outside, etc. I mean, those are the kind of simulations that come with it. And thanks to this robotics, the service can benefit many more because the number of qualified personnel was the main upside. This is Eureka. That's about Internet of Things. And they are developing projects for smart cities. They put sensors in the waste bins, whether or not they're full. It tells the municipal workers which garbage to collect and which not. So it saves up to 30% of fuel and time for municipalities. They're not in Turkey, they're also working in 50 plus countries selling products in 50 plus companies. The guys at the margins, I met them. They met while they were in my class, so I know how it all evolved. And this is Ops Genius. Selahattin touched upon this issue. It's a strange company, interesting company, sold for 296 million. Murat Şahin has established this company, shuttles back and forth from airports, and the company was sold. And Başak is the founder of armut.com. It's a marketplace like Yemek Sepeti, but the same thing for houseworks, painting and wall painting and etc. House modifications. This is Otsima, the social entrepreneurship. The two founders you see here, Zafer and the other one I forgot, computer engineer, still a student, not a graduate, but Otsima is producing tablet apps for children with autism with the purposes of training. So they devise the software, and it's not only for profit. It's not only for profit. They got a lot of workers, and he has got to pay salaries, etc. But the main objective they're seeking is to help children with autism, and without any education and training, they are dependent on their families, on their parents for a lifetime. But with appropriate training, then children with autism, I mean, that's the kind of training that's rare, not easy to find, but they can take care of themselves, some of them. And Zafer focuses on this problem because it's a family problem. His brother or sister was autistic, so that was a kind of problem he wanted to solve ever since. So that's why he came up with this company, Otsimo, and social is an example of social entrepreneurs. These guys are good examples, and these are some of the classical examples. I mean, the kebab. Uh, actually, it's branding. Adil is my name, you know. Anyway, it's my shop. So these are bakkals, markets. They're having difficulties. They're having significant difficulties to survive, but they got to do something new. I mean, see, hair parlors, or this one, a kitchen by women. I thought these were examples of women entrepreneurs, but these are social entrepreneurs. Actually, these are social entrepreneurs in Nevşehir. They've established this society foundation, Solidarity Foundation. Instead of spending time during the day at home, they prepare these uh, the Turkish mantı, Turkish raviolis, if you like. So they get together and to prepare this food stuff, Turkish raviolis, mantı, and you deep freeze them and sell them and benefit others with it. So what else do we have? This one's about failure. Well, we have 5 more minutes. If you want to allocate some 20 minutes for Q&A because we have a lot of questions. I'm catching up some of those, but yeah, okay, I will spare some time for Q&A. Okay, anyway, I will. Failure is real and it's not nice. It doesn't taste nice. It doesn't feel nice. But you check the web, first numbers are not real. 90% of new startups, 80% of new startups shut down, closed down shop in the first 12 months. No. People tell you, very good people will tell you this. The same thing in English and Turkish. You will find these numbers.
Neyse ki değil. Bu Amerika'daki bizim cost cabinet değeri, Small Business Administration, SBA'in doğrudan web sitesinden bulunabilen bir rakam. Amerika'da işte 90.
Well, this number you can get from US from SBA. It's about companies and survival gradient rate of companies. At the end of year 1, you have lost 20%, but 80% still survives. Year 3, about 1/3 have shut down, closed down shop. 2/3 is living. So 90% closed down in first year, etc. It's a lie. 5 years, almost half. 10 years, about 1/3 of those companies surviving. Yeah, there are those that are closing, but there are many that survive as well. So if 90% would go down in the first 12 months, then no one would go in that direction. Nobody would have done this, huh? But you got to be careful. You got to be looking for answers and solutions to your problems. So you just don't do this one. I mean, entrepreneurship. You just don't be entrepreneurs with eyes closed. We looked for the same numbers for Turkey. We couldn't. But with a thesis student, a doctor now, a PhD student, has helped me do this one, drain this data from the trade registry, and this is what it looks like. Do you think company deaths are higher or lower? What do you think? I had this questionnaire on Twitter and everybody said Turkey would be worse. But see how it turns out, 1990, 95, 2000. Post 2000 focuses here in this area, and pre 2000 survival rate for 5 years is well about 90%. The 5 years was around 50% for the US. In post 2000, let me change that. Yeah, not the highlighter, so that you can see better. The cursor. So this is after 2000. After 5 years, 80% plus survival. 10 years, still you have about 60% of those companies surviving, thriving. So 10 years, more than 50% of all Turkish companies see beyond 10 years, which is a rate that is far beyond the US. And 5 years, 80%. Maybe this is not something good. It's not something great. So bad companies have to go down. Companies that are not making money, that are not successful, they have to fail and go down. And one reason for them is such a high survival rate might be because of the difficulty of closing down shop in Turkey. I mean, low legal wise. Anyway, entrepreneurship is not easy. You stand a chance of failing.
Ya %95'i olmasın o.
Percent going down. You mean 95% or surviving? Okay. No, it's not like 5% survives. The rates are better. Rates are better than. What's the reason? Not one reason. There are many reasons how to reduce that. There are some recommendations for some tools, some institutes. I said honey drop here, just keywords in a nutshell. I mean, this is from CB Insights. Main reasons for failure for startups receiving investments. Product is not sought after. I mean, they have looked into, they have examined the reason of death, where 40%, more than 40%, says no demand for our product. You spend money, you spend time, and you produce, and there's no market. The market doesn't want it. It's a disaster. It's so bad, and this shouldn't happen. And we should work not to make it happen. No cash, team problems, but that one, no demand. I mean, that's my focus. I'm going to share a secret with you, a secret that I have taken from Paul Graham. Y Combinator. That is the first accelerator program. His Y Combinator is the first accelerator in 2003. So what's the difference between accelerator and incubator? I mean, incubation is from idea to establishment. Accelerator is starts when you take the product. I mean, this is about teaching how to present. So these are the kind of investors that accelerate once the product is out there. Accelerate this marketing. So the secret to reduce failure in entrepreneurship. You ready? The secret is to produce something that people or clients want. As long as you do this, you stand far more chance of being successful. And to complement that, just don't spend more time, spend more money on things that people don't want. So you have to check the demand. Who will buy this? So I asked this one to all entrepreneurs, and I asked them, are you sure? And are you sure? Well, I feel like it, they say. I feel like it. No, it's not enough if you feel like it, because humans err. I know a lot of people who have made mistakes. And how do you know? Do you have evidence? Well, I don't know. How should I have any evidence? I have not produced yet. And how can I know? So without producing your product, you don't. Well, you do stand a chance of testing your products before production, but I will go into the details of this. Some recommendations: focus on business models, check them out. What are the business models? How are they used? This is about catching a flying around idea and putting it on paper. I think next week you will see that with Emek Kepenek. We'll tell you more about that. Lean startup methodology. Learn about this one. Learn about lean startup methodology. Learn about how to make it more efficacious and with a minimum viable product. And the Turkish version is METU, like a meow. Minimum işken ürün, minimum viable product. It's another tool. This is about testing what you're not so sure. I mean, testing your hypotheses. And it's a quick test, actually, how you can test quickly. And then maybe the easiest one is to go out there and talk to the clients. You have to do that. I'm not talking about chit chat. I'm not talking about chit chat. It's not like if there was a product, would you buy that? No. Carry out critical interviews with clients. It's a great talent, great competence, great qualification, great skill. Anyway, I had a couple of more slides, but I'll jump them. This is the canvas business
Bu 9
model,
parçadan
the
oluşuyor.
most widely
Havada
used
uçuşan bir
in
film gibi.
entrepreneurship.
Kağıda
You get
örnek
this idea
verdiğim
flying
her
around,
parçayı
putting it on
atlamadan
paper without
detaylandırmak
skipping
gerekiyor.
anything. And
Kağıda
this is a
dökmek
tool to
önemli değil.
detail
Ama
that
havada
further. Putting on
uçuşurken
paper is great. I
CD
mean, it's
girerse
when it's
güzel
flying
görünüyor.
around like,
Ama kağıda dökmek zorunda kaldığınızda, gerçekten oraya yazmak zorunda
yeah, but
kaldığınızda
when you
benim
put it on
müşterim
paper,
benim müşterim şu
you will
sorunu yaşıyor.
see this is
Benim
my
bu
client,
müşterinin
that's
sorununu
the problem they
söyleyebilirim.
have,
Şu para
and this is
ödeyeceğim,
how
şu
I'm
kadar
going
satacağım,
to
şunu
solve their
yapacağım diye.
problem.
Onların bir
This is
seçim
this
hakkı
is the
olduğunu,
amount of money
bir
that
şey
I will
üretmek
use to
istediğini
produce, I will use to
ama
sell,
rakamı
etc.
ortaya
When you put it on
koyarken
paper, you will
halkın
see
altına
that no, it's not
sürdürebilmesiydi
like that, because
görünür
when it's
özelliği,
flying
görünür
around,
özelliği. Bir
uh,
de hızlı yapılabilmesi.
like
Mesela bir
gossamer,
sayfayı ilk
it's
seferinde belki
has no
birkaç günde
solid
ama ondan
bearing.
sonra bir iki
First
saatte
couple of
yapabilir hale
pages might
gelebilirsiniz.
take a
Burada
couple of
da
days to
Assoc bir
prepare, but
inovasyon
then it will get
anlayışı
faster and faster. And
geliştirdiğini
some
ifade eder.
examples, innovative
İlla
examples here
ürün
for
değişikliği
business
olmak zorunda
models.
değil.
You don't necessarily have to
İşlevlerini
change products.
herhangi
You
bir
can
değişiklik
also
yapabilirsiniz.
tamper with
Buradan bir
uh,
örnek vereyim size.
anywhere of the business
Amazon
model. Amazon, for example,
dünyanın en değerli
the
şirketlerinden bir
most
tanesi bugün.
one of the most valuable companies of the world.
Ürünü değiştirmedi.
They didn't
Müşteriyi
change the
değiştirmedi.
product. They
Neyi
didn't
değiştirdi
change the
biliyor musunuz?
clients. What did they change?
Müşteri ilişkilerini ve
They
kanalları değiştirdi.
changed their
Satış
client
şekillerini değiştirdi.
relations,
Da eskiden kitapçıda
customer
satılan,
relations.
kitapları müzik
They
dükkanında satılan CD'leri
have changed
mağazaya
the location of the
internete
shops. They
taşıdılar abi.
brought everything, the
Ve
CDs
bu
and the books on
sayede
the web. And that's how
çok
they started
büyüdü,
out.
çok arttırdı
And
kendisini
they
ve
have grown
dünyanın en değerli
exponentially
şirketlerinden biri haline getirdi.
all the way up to becoming
CD ve
one of the most valuable companies of the world. CDs and books started out as a seller of CDs and books. They're sending anything, selling anything, even including technologies. Amazon Web Services reaps most of its profits from selling of technologies. Just focus on the business models and you will find out about the details. This is my definition of an MVP. It is a tool that helps you to get your hands on the most verified learning in the more simpler, faster, and cheaper fashion. Interviews with clients can be an MVP, for example, for you to test certain things. If you want any other instruments, please, you will find a plethora of them in adiloran.com. You will find my YouTube videos. You will get all the recommendations, etc. Rent the Runway. It's an interesting company. There's no time to talk about it, but it's about women. It's about women. It's about selling. It's about providing women branded products to women, but it's rental, not selling, for weddings, etc. And it's 1/10 the price. And just to test the idea, they do this test run. They are just master students at the time, and they go out and check if they have the money to buy those clothes, whether or not they can do it. They just rent a shop for a day close to the university. They call in about invite 125 friends. Most of them are women, and they have this open house when all the women can go through the clothes, check them out, and they ask them, "Would you rent these clothes?" And most of those say, "Yeah, yeah," and they say, "You cannot try them on," and the results are good. And then the third test was about pictures. They don't invite people, but send out pictures, ask them whether or not they would rent those garments, and 25% say yeah. So this is how they start investment. How they make the decision to invest, and this is the resources or references. I'm sorry. So let's focus on the chat box for questions.
Ben yapayım isterseniz çünkü vakit az, zaman çok verimli kullanmak açısından. Çok çok teşekkürler. Gerçekten
Rica ederim.
To make
inanılmaz
best use of our time. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take care of Q&A, but this presentation was a valuable one. It was groundbreaking and mind-opening. You recommended a lot of references. You signaled the directions to go, etc. You have gave them a lot of homeworks, and now they have all these resources to dwell on. I think you just ignited the fire in their minds, and the rest is with them, up to them. And I realized, by the way, all these entrepreneurs in Turkey, I have supported them. Secure Drive, for example, that's one of the companies I use most frequently. And in Ankara, a METU graduate has his own company, Kozoto, but Secure Drive was in Istanbul. I used Armut. We have Secure Drive. We have Secure Drive in Ankara. I mean, the first parking. Anyway, in Istanbul we work with Secure Drive, and in Ankara we work with. I work with METU guys, and Otsima. I know them. I know Zafer, and my daughter is assisting them while they were developing the software as a native speaker. So she started supporting entrepreneurs at the age of 6. We have a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions, but first, I want to start with a quick question, a short one. How do you determine the value of a startup? Well, they just do it off the cuff. They sometimes you hear the word more arts than science. I'm a professor of finance, and I also teach valuation of investment. But to be able to do that valuation scientifically, normally you have to have some cash flow that can be foreseen. There might be discounts, etc., and then that's how you determine. But this is done by ripened companies, large companies. But at the idea stage, everybody's guessing or using rules. But the market size is important. They take a look at the market. When it matures, the revenues would be X, and they multiply it with some factor, etc. For example, Y Combinator does a similar thing. They offer $100,000 for 5%, 7% of the company, etc. So at initial stages, the methodologies that are used are so generic, So we cannot give out any more details. But the main idea is this: if you have the potential, you can be evaluated higher at the earlier stages. If you're opting for targeting a smaller market, then your valuation will be less because you are targeting less profits. And valuation is about negotiations. It's a bargain. I mean, when you have more money and when you are more presentable and you are more skillful at presenting, you can make believe and you can achieve better results. Then another question is about social entrepreneurs or for our social entrepreneurs, how to address and attract the attention of the market. Do we have to start with a product that is demanded, or what would you recommend for financial development, etc.? So social entrepreneurship requires that you go out to investments. It's not easy, and to get it, it's not easy to investments. Investors will not invest in you just because they like your appearance. They want to make money. They put in money to make more money. And social entrepreneurs don't come with that, or come with that, but it's not at an agreeable level. I mean, there are things like impact investing, etc. I mean, if you are protecting the nature, this and that. I mean, some companies or some investors might value that. Now we talk about green investments. So normally in such projects, for example, Zafer, Otsimo has a revenue model which differs in Turkey from US, for example. It's the same product. They sell the product because that training is so expensive to get. For example, so many dollars per annum in the US, they buy it, but I mean, we are all freeloaders. I mean, people with children with autism don't even agree to pay for that. I think they partnered with Tohum, they partnered with Turkcell, the mobile operator, and that's how they get their money, because people are so stringy and they distribute it. For example, uh, Turkcell gives you those applications, and I mean, do you give Turkcell 10,000, 100,000 of those applications, and you just hand it out to users of Turkcell, and that's an indirect profit. But there are many other examples in Turkey trying to do the same thing or similar thing. For example, mass funding, crowdsourcing. crowdfunding.
Türkiye'de şey vardı.
In Turkey, there
Ben
was,
takip
I think we
ettim.
had the
Orada
Beehive arı
konulan
kovanı,
projeler genellikle ya sosyal
and the
girişimcilik
most
veyahut da işte ben
funded
film çekmek istiyorum, belgesel
projects
çekmek istiyorum falan.
were social
Onlar
projects,
parayı
films,
veriyordu. Yani daha sosyal
documentaries,
veyahut da işte gideceksin bir yerden işte Avrupa
or you have to
Birliği'nden
go
veyahut da
to,
devletten
to
veyahut da
EU, for example, to the
devletlerden
government or to
nasıl olsa ulaşma
municipalities,
imkanı
for
var.
example,
Ama
looking for
orada da
sources,
mesela
resources.
yani finans önemsiz olmuyor. Çünkü o kısıtlı
But
kaynağı bunun en güzel sosyal
you have
girişimcilik
limited resources, and the
ülkelerinden bir
best
tanesi
example in
Bangladeş'teki
social entrepreneurship is in Bangladesh.
microfinance örneği.
Microfinance, that's a good
Olması gerekiyor.
example.
Değil
Yunus
mi?
Mohammed, you know,
Adam 100
microfinance. I mean, the
dolardan
guy
az yatırımlar
is
yapıyor,
looking for,
borçlar
is
alıyor.
making
Kadın
investments less than
girişimciler
100
özellikle
US dollars.
ve al
Especially the
100
money
doları
goes
verip
to
gidemiyor.
women
Al
entrepreneurs.
100
It's not
doları
like
ama bunu
get
bana
the
faizle
$100 and do the job.
ödeyeceksin diyor.
He
Ama
says you will
normalde
get the
bankaların borç
$100 and
vermeyeceği insanlar bunlar. Ama bir de
he gives
sosyal ve çok
$100
yerde
to
toplum
entrepreneurs
tarzı
that the
olduğu
banks
için
wouldn't,
bunların büyük bir kısmı hakikaten ufak
you know,
ölçekli bazı
issue any
işler
credit
kurup
for. And
ondan
he
sonra
gets
bunun
interest,
sapmalarına bile
yes, but
yardımcı
we're
oluyor.
talking about
Sonra para geri
$100
dönüyor.
minus.
Paranın
And the
geri
money
dönmesi niye önemli?
returns.
Yani
Why is it
birinci
important?
ilk
Why does it
yatırım
matter?
alan
It's
paranın
not
geri
going to
dönmesi
make
değil.
you
Ama o
rich.
parayı
It's
ben
not the
yeniden
return of
bir
money that
başkasına da
makes you rich,
borçlanabiliyorum
because
diyor.
you'll be able to
Dolayısıyla iyi işleyen,
give that to
çıkar
someone
sağlayana
else, the same money.
tamamen
So
dayalı olmayan iş modelleri
business
sürdürülebilir
models
oluyor. Dolayısıyla
that
bir
are
kere o
not
ilk
based on
başlangıç
external funding
yatırımını
are
parasını
sustainable.
verdikten sonra kendi kendine sürdürebilen bir sosyal girişimcilik projesi mesela çok daha fazla fayda yaratabilir.
Evet. Şimdi bir soruda bu startup
And another question,
özgü bir çalışma atmosferine sahip olmak ne kadar önemli?
what's the importance?
Ağır bürokratik yapının bulunmaması, vergi avantajlarının
The fact that the company can be
Abi, yani
managed
Türkiye'de her
remotely,
şey
no
çok
high tax
olsun,
burden.
vergi avantajı olsun, bilmem ne olsun filan. Devlet desteklesin, devlet yapsın.
Well, tax
Böyle
advantage, state support, state subsidy are not common practices in the world. But Turkey has offered and is still offering very high level of state subsidy. You can get projects of, or you can easily conduct projects of software, like, because you can get support of 200,000 lira. It is really good. Not good enough for hardware projects, but good enough for many projects. When it comes to working environment, some people do not want to become part of big corporations, but they say that I want to become an entrepreneur because the corporates make you work like a slave. But if you are going to start up, then you will maybe work more than a slave. If you want to be a lazy person, and if you are interested in being as lazy as possible, then you may not fail, because only when you have rich parents you may succeed in entrepreneurship if you don't work hard enough, or you may be too lucky. You will work hard. You will really work hard if you want to become a successful entrepreneur, and your spirit may be down quite easily. So if you lose your motivation quite easily, then you are not a good candidate, or you need good support mechanism, people who may actually motivate you when needed. But being an entrepreneur is not easy. Yes, we said that only 5 of them survive. It's not a correct number, but most of them go bankrupt, or most of them are not able to reach their potential. Actually, you already answered one of the questions, state support. You replied that question about state support. When migrants face discrimination and prejudice, which actor plays the most important role in struggling against such discrimination or prejudice against the migrants. Well, such a culture has to be developed, awareness has to be raised. But I'm thinking of writing an article about life is not fair, and that article is going to involve some examples from the economy. There are many findings showing us that the life is not fair. Yes, migrants are seeing the situation that the life is not fair more commonly than others. Don't expect others to fix the situation. You should think about how I can operate and how I can do business in such an environment. I hope things will change and improve over time, but don't wait for the things to improve themselves. If you want to become an entrepreneurship, just think about how I can do business in such a setting, how I can do business despite the existence of such challenges. Maybe when the culture adapts itself, when more humanitarian behaviors are adopted, things will improve, I hope. I can clearly say that Turkey's economy is an informal economy. It's not well regulated. There are some advantages for this for refugees and migrants, but when it comes to Canada, it's a country of migrants, immigrants, but if you go there because of many reasons like no accreditation for education and big obstacles before you to have access to the market and a well-regulated market because of the system, not because of any discrimination. In Canada, most of the immigrants are entrepreneurs, become entrepreneurs. Canada is not taking pride in this because it's not always a good thing for economies. It is because the immigrants cannot find a job, a place for themselves in the employment sector. So that's why they start their own businesses. Of course, not all of them become successful, but those who become successful in the mid run and in the long run, they become successful in 5 years of time or in 10 years of time. Compared with the homeborn population, they become successful in the mid and long run. So there are challenges, but opportunities are also available. In the Northern America, in Canada, some populations are very abundant, like the Indians run grocery shops in Canada. Chinese people run laundry shops and cleaning services. They do cleaning services in Canada because their culture is adapted to such business. Their friends are already doing this business, and they are agreeing to work at the weekends and overtime. Thank you very much, Adil Bey. And we are expecting to see a book. No, it's not a book, it's an article. We are expecting to see your article as soon as possible. Looking forward to seeing it. Thank you very much. I hope there is no other question. If there is anyone who would like to ask, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand. Adil Bey, you can stop sharing your screen so that everyone can be seen on the screen. Please turn on your camera so that we can all see you, if it's okay for you. So we are done with this great presentation, and we are done with this training as well. Next week, we are going to meet again on the same hour, on the same day. It's like TV shows. But we are going to have 4 speakers next week. Canvas model is going to be explained to you next week by another speaker. So you will be able to have some brief information about this model, because you will not be able to hear all the details because it's a very compact zipped format. You can learn about the details with your own research. You can use the links and the resources shared with you for further details. Can Kenanoğlu is going to talk to you about how to fail in a startup. He owns a startup and he failed. Then Emekan Hoca and is going to talk to you about Canvas and business models and the importance of communication. Ali Erdem is going to give us an example about social entrepreneurship. He is the owner of IDEMA and he's also a German Marshall Fund Fellow. Berat is also a German Marshall Fund Fellow, an entrepreneur and immigrant, a graduate of METU as well. He is going to talk to us about the financing opportunities. See you next week on Saturday. Have a nice weekend. See you. You can see our picture on Twitter. I'm going to tweet this picture. If you have Twitter account, you can also follow our account. You can tag us and you can use our hashtags.